Richard Linklater's newest film is on Netflix now, but is it a hit, man, or is it a miss, man? I'll tell you right now. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with my review of Hitman, which is streaming on Netflix right now after a brief, limited theatrical release. Hitman is from director Richard Linklater, his first live-action film since 2019's Where'd You Go, Bernadette? It was also written by Linklater and star Glen Powell, loosely based on the life of Gary Johnson, though it seems that the term loosely is in itself a very loose term for this mostly fictional story. Powell plays Gary Johnson, an unassuming college professor in New Orleans who works with the police running tech for undercover stings to bust people trying to hire a hitman to kill a loved one. When Gary is taken out of the van and forced to be the face of the operation, he soon embraces his new job, working to construct various identities to lure the would-be criminals to incriminate themselves and give him money for the hit. But Gary's life takes a turn when he meets Madison, played by Adria Arjona, a scared wife whom he begins dating while maintaining his undercover hitman persona. As you can imagine, things get complicated as Gary has to learn how to juggle his dual identities without either the police or Madison finding out about his double life. Glen Powell is obviously one of the biggest breakout stars of the last year or two, and having a movie like this on his resume where he's not only the star of the film, but also co-writes the film, is definitely not going to hurt his career in any way. If this were the movie scene in the 1990s, I think that Glen Powell could have easily had Matthew McConaughey's early career. I guess Richard Linklater has a knack for finding actors, he cast Glen Powell early in his career, who are effortlessly charismatic and charming, and really Glen Powell is the latest Hollywood 15 years in the making overnight success. He's also quite good in this movie, especially when he's taking on various personas to meet with his prospective clients. Some of these are funny characters, and others are obvious send-ups of real people. I caught a little Tilda Swinton in one of them, and then another one was definitely based off of Christian Bale's performance as Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. You can tell that Glen Powell was having a lot of fun with this, and if that had been really the focus of the movie, him taking on these very zany characters and kind of getting in over his head, then I think I would have liked it a lot more than I did. Where Hitman doesn't work for me as well is its romance, which is unfortunate because it's both the movie's selling point and its focus for more than half the film. I have no issue with Adria Arjona. I'm honestly somewhat surprised that she isn't more well known, which I chalk up to the fact that she's worked in a lot of streaming movies, which are still catching up to theatrical films as far as star-making ability. But for Hitman to work, it's essential that I root for these characters, at least for the romance part of the film, and I just didn't. I didn't even really like either one of those characters, and I'll go into it when I talk about spoilers in just a few minutes, but I kept on kind of trying to put that aside and let the movie do its work and see, okay, well, maybe they're trying to do a subversion of the genre, but, you know, I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, and then it just didn't. And it really kind of left me with a bad taste in my mouth. This is probably why I'm going to be a lot lower on Hitman than a lot of people, because this reasoning is entirely subjective. I can't point to shoddy workmanship or poor acting. Those are factors that are a little easier to frame in a technical sense. But my issue was that I just flat out didn't like the characters. However, if you've ever tried to convince one of your friends that one of their friends is somebody that they shouldn't like, you'll know that that is basically a pointless conversation, and it's not a conversation that I want to have here. I'm not here to make you feel the way that I do about a movie. I'm just here to explain why I feel the way that I feel about a movie. I will say that Glen Powell's very good in this movie, and it does have a lot of laughs. I wish it would have stayed in this world. Richard Linklater is a very talented director, and he does excel at making likable characters, and maybe some people will like these characters more than I did. But really, this movie is on Glen Powell's shoulders, and he's up to the task, and I look forward to seeing more of what he's done. I liked him in Top Gun Maverick. I'm looking forward to Twisters this summer. This isn't some sort of a black mark in his career, as far as I'm concerned. It really is just kind of limited to this one movie. So I feel like I need to go into spoilers to further explain what I really didn't like about Hitman. But if you haven't seen it and you don't want to get into spoilers, I'll just tell you that on my personal rating scale, I'm giving Hitman a rating of it's fine. It was straying very close to not a fan territory. But I do think that the things that I did like just nudge it up. And then I'm also keeping in mind that I have kind of a personally subjective opinion on this, even more so than usual. So those are my non-spoiler thoughts on Hitman, but let's talk about my real issues with the film, which will involve spoilers. They're going to start right now. Okay, so right off the bat, I had issues with Gary slash Ron and his relationship with Madison because he lied to her and slept with her for many, many, many months. It wasn't just a one-time thing. He didn't come clean after the first time. He was living a lie for a very long time. And this is somebody in Madison who is in a very sensitive place. She'd been in an abusive relationship. She obviously had, trust issues, and she was scared of this person. And then here you have a guy who's just lying to her face the whole time, and yet we're supposed to buy this as this kind of hot, sexy romance. But I just couldn't get over that part because I thought that was really scummy. I thought it was a real scummy thing of him to do. Then it turns out that Madison is a liar too, because she's lied about being divorced, which puts Gary in a position that he didn't ask to be in. So now we have two liars that I'm being asked to root for. But again, movies have done this before. You have two very deeply flawed people. Maybe they make each other better, or they realize that, they have to forgive each other for these different things. So, I'm going to put that aside. I'm going to keep watching and see what happens. Then Madison kills her ex-husband. And I mean, okay, yes, he is a dick. Absolutely. He tried to take out a contract to kill her. He was not a good person, but Gary is also kind of a cop, and he helps her get away with it, which if I were him, you can do that. You're risking going to prison, but it would also kind of set off my red flags because, she really pushed him into this thing that he didn't want to do. At times she acted a little unhinged. They both did, honestly. And then she murders the ex-husband. Is this really somebody that he is willing to go to prison for, or that he wants to spend the rest of his life with if they should get away with it? I didn't buy the fact that he was still so all in on the relationship after finding out all of these things. Then they commit a murder together, taking out Gary's dickhead partner who'd figured out what was happening. And this is where it lost me, and also where I think the screenplay has a fundamental flaw. The only way for me to have been on board with this is if you had shown me just how horrible a person this cop was. And it was the actor who played Dwight on The Walking Dead. I mean, he can do that sort of persona, but the movie told me, okay, he had an altercation with some teenagers that was caught on video. He got suspended. He was an embarrassment to the department. That's obviously not good. And then Gary says he was a racist and says he was a misogynist, but we never actually saw those things. It was just things that he was saying. It honestly felt like kind of a justification for murder. You really have to sell me on just how bad this guy is if you want me to go along with our two quote-unquote heroes murdering him at the end of the movie. What did he do to deserve slowly suffocating on the floor with a plastic bag over his head? I think that is a big flaw in the screenplay. They didn't amp that up enough with that character. But okay, so they did it. And again, this is something that we've seen in movies, especially in like the film noir genre, where you have two people and they do this horrible deed, but there's always some sort of karmic price that they have to pay. Or this was some sort of a noble act, which again, I don't think that the screenplay really sold. And then nothing happens to them. They are rewarded for this murder by getting to live the life of their dreams. Gary figures out that, hey, this con man lie of a personality actually helped me make my life better. I'm a super teacher now. He and Madison have two kids. They have a super nice house. And the movie ends on them telling this cute story of when they met at a diner the day that mom asked dad if he would kill her ex-husband for money. Okay, I'm not a Puritan, but I just wasn't happy for these two. I mean, here were two people who chose to be liars and murderers. Circumstance didn't thrust them into those positions. They were absolute choices, and they were rewarded for it. They never paid any kind of price. Now, do cheaters and liars and sometimes even murderers win in the real world? Yes. All the time that happens, but that doesn't mean that I have to see it happen in a movie and say, oh, good for them. It just felt so off. It was like there was something missing from the screenplay to explain to me why I should be okay with this. And it just wasn't there. When we got to the end of the movie, I was like, well, that sucked. I'm not happy for them at all. And it's not like the movie was portraying this as something that was like kind of a quasi-dark ending. It's obvious that Powell and Linklater were 100% wanting you to be happy and be like, yeah, they won. I don't know. I just didn't think that they did. And I was not happy with it. It didn't sit right with me. And I understand that that's not going to be everybody's case. That's why I say, all movie reviews are subjective, every single one of them that I do, but this one even more so is kind of subjective to my own personal code, not even necessarily my artistic sensibilities or what I like or don't like in a movie, but just like how I feel about the world personally. I don't like to see cheaters and liars and murderers win in real life, and I really don't like to see it happen in a movie, especially when there's nothing there that even hints at the fact that they're going to pay any kind of price for this. You can say that it's like, okay, they're subverting the dramatic rules or they're subverting the tropes. And if that works for you, that's fine. But it didn't work for me at all. And I really kind of found the movie unpleasant by the time we got to the end of it. If the first half of the movie hadn't been so entertaining, I would have rated it a lot lower, but I really doubt that I'm going to go back and revisit Hitman because I'll know that in the end, two characters with whom I disagree almost absolutely with every action they take in the movie win at the end of the day with no consequence. In fact, with many, many rewards attached to those actions. I'm not going to condemn Linklater and Powell for writing the script this way. I just find its ethos unpleasant, and I'm not judging anyone who doesn't feel the way that I do, but I would be rooting against these characters every day of the week, and that's a huge reason why I'm just not on board the Hitman train, as so many other critics and people that have seen the movie seem to be. But what do you think? Did it not bother you? What happened at the end of the movie? Were you perfectly content with the ending? Let me know down in the comments below, and as always, stay tuned right here for more movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Thanks as always for watching the channel. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.